Champagne Dawn. Cassandra wrote to tell me that my problem with chicks is over. And I jumped out of my chair and ran to the picture window in the living room, threw open the curtains and saw my neighbor hacking his rake at the still fluttering body of a barred owl. So, it's nice to be back in Racine. I read for Bonk. Nick and Nick, two Nicks. I think there are 4 Nicks in this room, at least.
Nick Rich around here.
Published my very first thing, which was a chapbook called Your Mouth is Everywhere, which is right there. And I'm going to read something from it at some point. So thanks for having me out. So I'm going to read primarily from a new manuscript. It's basically freshly finished. It's called Attributed to the Harrow Painter. And just a brief note, the Harrow Painter was a ancient Greek vase painter. Probably didn't go by the name Harrow Painter. In fact, didn't. That was coined by someone who discovered some of his Greek work, pots, at this place called the Harrow School in London. But he basically was, or is considered, a super minor Greek vase painter. And I started thinking about this whole idea of major and minor, the obsession with, like, you know, your ambition, like as an artist, whether you're musicians or filmmakers or poet or whatever. And there's a lot of, we place a lot of emphasis on this weird, hierarchy of, like, you got to get up here, or basically we won't acknowledge that you exist. So I read this guy wrote about this Harrow painter years and years ago, and he says, calls him a minor pot painter, whom he later called, quote, a poorly equipped painter whose ordinary employment was daubing cheap neck amphorae and column craters with dull and ill-drawn forms, end quote. These are harsh words, though not wholly inaccurate. For although he has been justly called more than ordinarily competent, how would you like that? 1,000 years from now, you're called more than ordinarily competent. The Harrow painter was indeed a minor talent, notwithstanding the undeniable charm of some of his works. If, however, one looks beyond the quality of his line and his relatively low standing in the artistic pantheon, one discovers in him many elements of interest and more than a few delightful pictures. So I've set up, this book is it's mostly an exploration of my kid, Sasha. My son is 4. But thinking about the larger context of, like, what is a minor talent? What does that even mean? And of course, I'm not going to go into a long discussion about it, but it has everything to do with who's making those judgments, right? Who's organizing our canons for us. Anyway, so I'll start. This is called Looking at Schnabel's The Death of Fashion with My Son. As we stood in the unreflective pall of the canvas, neatly pocked by broken plates, light swallowed by the sickly sweet strokes of cracked paint Schnabel clumsily slapped across it, I picked up Sasha and asked him if he thought it might be a bit much, the painting's title, but he already had designs on the Brancusi he glimpsed in the Des Moines Art Center's catalog, which he pawed on the floor of the entrance room, so plush were the couches I later fell asleep reclining into one, dreamed of. Woke in a fright, turned off the lights, walked into a courtyard terrifically cold. The waterfall tending my dreams froze midstream, reflecting brilliant Fresnel light. The artist I follow from year to year, sometimes years pass, but I find him launching another lantern down the river, frozen to river bottom. And so I whispered into his delicate ear, are we able to meet these monuments as is? What would that mean for the consumer? If, say, you happen upon a David Salle painting, rarer these days, what if your stepmother was in the same art class in high school as Sally, doodled the same insane nothing of notes, desperate for a way out, not just of this class, but of this gap between herself and what she might want to become? David Salle, don't sweat the small devils detailing your Lamborghini Countach. Sounds so garish to talk this way about the 80s. I mean, that model was like the Ford Escort of the jet set. which we didn't call the 80s, ladies and gents who spent a year and a day waving goodbye to entire villages inhaled in one sweet snort, this chasm spasms. And then David Sally went on to snort the entire decade into his rectum. She demurred brightly. The pain ticked into my stepmother. Soon enough, her spine began off-gassing a barbiturate haze 5 miles in every direction. Thanks, David Sally, for shutting down so many possibilities. This feeling like we all know each other from some past life spent holding hands, walking over the precipice into the volcanic bowels of hell. This otherness fixed into a buried set of neurons native to Homo sapiens sapiens. It's surfaced with a fury, furious with spouts of pepper spray frozen in the air, waiting for history's next victim to occupies the space in front of it. The Snow, Joyce wrote, to paraphrase him, to interpret or delay his words, to rework, remix, mash up, redefine, defile, lift, smash, plagiarize, borrow, beg, steal, augment. As homage, I distill his words into a bitter rye, drink it to bottoms up. He looked out. He had his protagonist look out a wintry window, each snowflake like a soldier whipping a horse yoked to a chariot, this Greece, this Rome, this Vatic impulse to stay connected, swirling all round, said in passing. His soul swooned slowly as he heard the snow falling faintly through the universe and faintly falling like the descent of their last end upon all of the living and the dead. So you tell me how your radical formalism saves lives exactly. I guess I figured art don't do just that. What I've got on view out my office window is luxurious paradisiacal snow stirring in me a soul-destroying desire to snort some Adderall, after all. This could be your legacy, Sasha, this art you have been forced to feed on for eons. Robin and I sink into the shitty couch in my office and fall asleep to Tarkovsky's Stalker, slowly fall to the bottom of the never-ending well, this tonic. And Robin murmured something about making sure all the locks were locked. I don't know if I checked them, so I checked them repeatedly. This bedroom farce feels like my face most days, a ray of sun phasing across the televised haze of some future my son takes out. A second, maybe it's the third mortgage on. He plugs in this din to his cryo-mortal coil, and we all eviscerate the wires we don't see, but imagine crisscross right in front of us. I can't wait until he touches them. Goes loco slurping snow cones, lisps with the asps in ancient Egypt. The overdub is imperfect, a few frames late, so when Sasha looks at a combine hanging against this well-lit wall and says, "This looks like garbage. Garbage can be art." The only word that matches his mouth is the end of everything. No one goes out like this. So, I'll read one more poem. I mean, my son's 4, and I guess when people have children, if you write poems, you sometimes write poems about your children. There's lots of bad poems out in the world about kids, but there's lots of really good ones. And part of the impetus, too, for this book was reading a well-known critic, poetry critic, so not well-known in reality, but well-known in poetry land. Talking about, he was introducing a book that he said, this is a favorite book of the year, and he said, despite the fact that I hate books about motherhood, I still can recommend this book. And in one sentence, this was in a major newspaper in America, he dismissed an entirety of like like a whole world of poetry. He's like, well, normally I don't like to read books about that shitty business that moms do, right? Which is meditating on their entire lives. And I thought, well, I guess you have to dismiss all kinds of poets, including Sylvia Plath, which would make no sense. But it got me to thinking again about domesticity and writing about the mundane and things that perhaps, at first glance at least, don't seem all that interesting. This is called The Speaker's Feeling of Loneliness is Profound, or I read the lyrics of The Emergency. When I picked up my son from preschool, this moment willed itself into being and nothingness, like when I tethered myself to his teacher and we lifted off to the clouds such happy balloons. All the new thinking is about floss. In this, it resembles a ham sandwich. Sunday morning, watching Sasha put a puzzle together. Sunlight sticks to the blinds like a germ to a lung. Love to the gun that hovers in front of each step I take to the bathroom, the bedroom, the office counter where I register Sasha's documents and stamp him into official oblivion. I'm not sure how much more melancholy I can take from this life. I have it easy. I get paid to develop a degree of hatred in my students for anything original in their thinking. I read this last night in Madison, and I had a current student in the audience. In the terrible light of the moon, under the crush of the news they brought, I read the lyrics of the emergency as they ticked across your eyes. Little man, I said as I gripped your shoulders, let me call you by your name, Wolf. These lyrics offer nothing. Whether stolen or begged for, these lyrics relieve no one as they relive these maudlin traumas that deploy from this gangrenous architecture of my past, which I've chosen to graft onto you. Forgive me. I mean this. I can't help but write about you, so forgive me all these years in advance. I'm an addict. You can easily redact it. By the time you're old enough to read this, you'll be able to erase whatever you like. So this is how my recent parent-teacher conference went down. A few weeks before you turned 4 and ate a peach cupcake and told me you'd like to be an astronaut artist. Good for you, my praised genius. You have lofty goals and the means to achieve them if you will consider selling pot to your friends. And don't worry so much about whether they think you're a boy or a girl. You have so much to look forward to. Your life is a matrix of gods and trends. Here's how things shook out however many years ago. I started saving everything for you. As I read it, me, what do you do all day? Wolf, I self-select, I sort things, I pour water from one cup into another. Me, what is your rapport like with your classmates? Wolf, I am a respectful watcher, I am an observational learner. I practice care of environment. I study them. I look for weaknesses. Teacher, did he say that? We don't practice that here. Me, he appears to be becoming unhinged. Teacher, he's calm in class, a real leader. Children follow him. He has so many ideas. For the lyrics of emergency, I mean an interpretation engine, something to drive you into my eye, which refracts terrible moonlight, the cost of choosing to atomize these days. A wolf of memory medallion of the meanest arts. Son, you won't remember any of this, so drive into tomorrow as if you have nothing to gain, nothing to peruse. I'll be thinking of you, armed with your vicious youth, your tabula rasa affect, your deep understanding of nothing. Wolf, why do you challenge me? Me, what do you mean? Wolf, I wasn't talking to you. That was basically my critique of the Montessori system, which I actually was also a Montessori graduate, or whatever you want to call it, but one of the weird things about Montessori, which was our only alternative where I live for a variety of reasons for my son, is that the terminology they use, so they don't play, they do works, which is basically, like I said, pouring water from one cup and then back into another cup. And the other thing is that everybody is your friend. So it's very hard to make a distinction between, say, the kids that there are kids that just don't talk to each other for a variety of reasons. I mean, I don't think there's any animosity, but you only have so many friends, I guess, you can make. So I don't quite know how to distinguish between his very close friends and his friends. It's just fascinating. I like Maria Montessori overall, her method, but there are some little things. Anyway, this is a poem in memory of my cousin Finn, who died very suddenly last fall. I only met him once. He stayed with us. He's from Hong Kong, and he came over and stayed with us for about 2 months. But we stayed in touch sort of off and on. He was always on the edge of a variety of disasters, and then recovered from many of them, and then suddenly cardiac arrest and just gone. It's called He Was Everything to Me for a Brief Blazing Time in My Life, in memory of Finn O'Neill. We can begin the process of brushing Hong Kong from our shirt folds as it flakes into our wonderful, futureless past. And some kind remark you made on my elegance really stuck with me. And I'd like to think everything changed, but nothing ever really does. That's so tired a position. Your mom is grieving, your sister is disbelieving, your father burns in a box aflame in the Philippines. All the world's ablaze right now, except of course it's not. It's been 30 years since you flew in, and the life I had yet to live, had yet to falsify, continues to record. All this data busting the steams. There was your smile etched into the mantle above the fireplace. It talked me out of so many worries, but the worries always came back with the speed and clarity of a wolf's howl under a harvest moon on a t-shirt in a truck stop. Who are you anymore? Nothing? Dust? Your mother fetal on the floor next to your bed? Your sister tearing up her house in search of anything you might have touched, but it's been a decade since you touched anything of hers. How did you do it, isolate flower, this method of self-annihilation? I mean, we all do it in some way. I just brushed against a pedestrian with my car. She was plugged into her wonderful world, her soundtrack walling her off, her phone throwing so many voices at once. I felt nauseated. After she walked off the curb right into my path, I threw up all over myself, my lap, the dash, filling the car with everything I had in me, until I couldn't see, and I didn't so much brush against her as smashed her so hard there was nothing left over except a palm's worth of gold dust glinting in this smash of sunlight so specific to the Midwest. A day like this, that is, when anything has happened so many times already. I see you, Finn, deep in mind, glowing at your edges like the astral. I don't know what else did I not know about you besides everything. But I am certain your mom and sister are emptied out no matter how prepared they've been in withdrawal from you for so long. They shake so violently, they appear still. This is to go this poem, and then I'll read a short one from the chapbook. This is for all my friends who have spent most of their lives either reckoning with addiction of all kinds, and I don't know how obviously, including family members, but it seems to me that addiction is the terrible thing that thrushes through so many people. This is called Coke Bloat. I'll trace you forever blue, like this bliss crawls across my body. I'll trace forever tiny circles across your body, forever exploding, tantric and everlasting. Just come down off that ledge. This is the place where we lie down, rinse and repeat our sins duly and notably. That guy passed out on the couch, speaks 5 dimes, and I don't even know what else to say. I'm so bleached, I'm uranium. Party just keeps on staying verb. This strychnine sky chews dawn's cuticles, and rat kings talk to me like I'm supposed to be in charge. I'm like you, I tell each one with my palsied fist. I'm gassed and queered out. See that man holding a towel to his forehead on the corner? He's flaking apart, just like I said he would. I'm totally down with whatever's the situation with M. She's chronic and bereaved and all hellmouth. The cicadas erupted this year, tearing my plan apart, my plan to earn you out of mind. The cicadas sawed off shotgun barreled into dawn. I gave you all of me. I don't ask for much. I just want to be loved the way we love the kittens we click through whatever you post, because we search for softness everywhere. I laughed. Try it. Laugh, cry, dissemble, reassemble yourself. Your cat saves you from caving pretty much every moment of your life. Stroking her fur staves the pain, the greasy ick of pain waiting to fry you into not oblivion, but it's like waking up and first thing you do is look in the mirror. Don't cry, dear reader. Don't click through me. Haven't you ever gone too far and wished you had gone even farther? All right, I'll just read one. This is, so Nick and Nick put this out. It's the first thing that I ever had published. I might steal this copy, as I was telling them. I don't know. I think I have one copy at home. So I'll read one short thing from here. Man, I wish I had happier things. Turns out, like, over the course of 2 books, I'm just like, nothing particularly happy. But I'm going to read one, it's a really short part of one, and then one a little bit shorter one. This is the end of a poem called, unsurprisingly, West of Vicodin. Jesus. This is the last part. They're like little sections. One's therapist, incidentally, should never leave the blinds open to the only window in his office when his office is on the ground floor next to a well-trafficked sidewalk. That's a very true thing. There was one I wanted to read, I'm sorry. I know. It's horrible when people do this. Oh, this is called the verbatim, and I'll leave it at that. I'm excited to hear you guys, and Jamal, I know your work, but I'm excited to hear you read. And thanks again. The verbatim. Such as knee-deep in snow, fingering sinew of dead sparrow, contemplating headlong into street before street plow. It is machine. I am machine. Machinations swerve into tilde, extra special sauce spills onto burger called today is the day that the rest of your life suctions, capiche? Only piano, only glass. Please tell me the curb screams my name because my name everywhere. I God the snow, plankton the bookie's nightmares. Jesus Christ, the brown mess of snow shrouding my sidewalk reminds me of the man tucked inside, the man jackhammering every tinseled thought as if backlash has backlash. You will see through into the thingness of things, such as the blood in a leaf that has no tree, the chasm between us as it thickens into a callus. Thank you.